definitely out. Let's see what this person's smoking. Now. What are you doing? Get off the road. Miss, get out of the car.
Yeah.
Are you on drugs right now?
No, not at all. My car gave out. I mean, I had somebody help me before, and apparently the brake did not stop.
Do you know you're driving on 3 wheels right now? Your wheel's completely out. You just crashed into this gentleman right here. You're a hazard. You're on the freeway.
80 miles on the freeway.
All right, you could kill it. We get it. Women are awful behind the wheel. I don't think we played that once before, but I don't think it had a conclusion like that. Where
no, I don't think so.
Where she crashed and stuff. So, all right, a little backstory here. I'm at Mass about a month ago, and I see this Japanese fellow at Mass, and I'm like, I think that's Ryan Katsu Rivera, and I'm like, I can't go up and say, is your name Ryan? Because, like, who the hell, what Japanese guy's named Ryan? This guy's gonna think I'm nuts. And I'm like, I can't be him. No way. So I had all Japanese people look the same moment.
Yeah.
You know,
well, that's called reality.
So I actually I saw Ryan on Twitter and I was like, hey dude, you know, did you go to Mass on Long Island recently? He was like, yeah. So we wound up seeing each other after Mass last Sunday and shared a Zin. And I bugged him to come on and he finally came on. Now, a little backstory, man. You
guys didn't share the same packet, right?
No, we swapped. Yeah, we swapped in each other's mouths. It was pretty gross.
We did the Lady and the Tramp.
A little backstory. So, growing up on Long Island, I like Opie and Anthony were a staple to be like a young working guy on Long Island, right? So then they break up, and Anthony starts his own thing. Anthony Cumia starts his own thing, and then this funny guy, Gavin McInnes, starts a show on his network. I liked Gavin immediately. Then they go through this whole thing where he starts the Proud Boys. This whole I'm watching through the whole entire thing. I remember your first appearance on New York Crime Report.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Like you were Asian Pat Dixon, like that. Like that's how your Twitter name came to be. Like you did a good Pat Dixon impression. Yeah. So I watched this whole progression. Like I've always watched Gavin ever since he was on there. Then I didn't watch him when he was on the Blaze or wherever he went. But then when you guys started your own thing, I started watching again. So it was pretty cool to actually see you and get to talk with you and stuff. So, and now I'm dying to actually hear how the hell you became Catholic. So I don't know if there's anything else I need to add to that, go ahead. But
first of all, that's the most refreshing intro ever, because usually when I have to explain it, like, so how'd you get started with Gavin's usually the question, and it's like Ace Ventura. He's like, the raise on the left side of your palm, and just like start the whole. It's just a long story, but really before that, where I was before that was working at like a sushi restaurant in the kitchen, cooking all the hot stuff, and I was listening to nothing but Opie and Anthony. And
really?
And then so I like that that's the timeline that of your familiarization with Gavin and Anthony, and the mind is like right up against it. So I was not raised with Opie and Anthony, but they were the only ones like keeping me company in this Japanese restaurant as far as humor goes. Now I love my boss, my coworker, but there's a language barrier for both. One was Ecuadorian and my boss was Korean. So there's not a lot you can't have like a nuanced joke with them. It's all it's like boing do. And it's hard to like, sometimes there's like I don't know, like a nuanced joke that they won't get. But you start talking crap about the Chinese and he loves it. Hey, Tommy, they don't wash their vegetables. And he's like, LOL. But so I was listening to Opie and Anthony like as an escape from like kind of a humorless, not really humorless, you know what I mean though. But so, Anthony got fired from Sirius XM while I was still listening to the free stuff of theirs on YouTube. And I didn't sign up for Compound because of Anthony, which I loved Opie and Anthony. I signed up for Gavin because I'd never heard somebody like say all the naughty things without giving them like the stigma, without treating them like they're these holy
Children.
bad words.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Politically
He wouldn't put like an explanation beforehand, like, listen, I'm not trying to be like he would just go for it. Gavin was hilarious from the first show he ever went on.
Yeah. And it was from like a best of that I heard on YouTube where I was like, I'd like to hear the rest of that interview because I could listen to hours of free Opie and Anthony. I'm pretty broke. I'm not going to sign up. But so yeah, and then I'm glad that you pretty much laid out everything after that, which is pretty great.
Yeah. So were you like considering becoming a stand-up?
No, I always held stand-up in like too high of a regard. I was a big stand-up fan. But I think I'm better in like short bursts, which is why I don't really have a show of my own. I have a celebrity mailbag show every Tuesday, but I'm literally somebody. Last night I was the guy from No Country for Old Men the entire time for an hour. So if I'm just me for too long, I get bored.
We actually tried in the green room because Ryan, like if you ever watch Gavin's show, Ryan will pop in with like a face swap and do an impression, and I'm like, maybe we could pull off the face swap. We tried doing it, we wound up losing connection. It just all fell apart. So
but I still wore the vest. Like I would have been. I think it would have been funny to wear the vest and just do the worst Australian accent, pretend to be Matt Fred. Like, crikey, mate, it's Matt Fred. And then,
dude, I did that too.
Better than Anthony's.
Dude, we went to Steubenville to meet Matt, and he's there with like his 6-year-old kid, and I made his 6-year-old kid do an Australian accent.
That's so funny.
Matt must have thought I was the biggest creep in the world. Like he didn't even really remember it when we finally had him on and stuff. It was just it was such an awkward moment.
That was a great episode. So I've been watching I've been a fan of you guys. Like at first, I think I was introduced to your show by you reaching out on Twitter.
Yeah.
And all of my secular content, like I listen to PKA, which is a show of just like these 3 guys they're funny and they talk about all manner of things, man, about pop culture and stuff. That's the only like secular stuff I listen to. I'm just been like rushing to learn as much about. There's like kind of 3 sections for me. There's like the church history, the stuff that you're not required to know, and then there's I think probably everybody would say, right, are you always in a constant state of catechesis? Like there's you can't know
always still to this. Right? I mean, Ryan, if you've been watching what's happened, all right, so especially doing this show, talking to new people, right? Like we're interviewing people. I mean, I became a young earth creationist over the past year.
6 months,
yeah, like 6-8 months. Like I was an evolutionist a year ago, and just from having conversations with people on the show, I'm like, it doesn't make like, and I am full now. I go at it with pretty much anybody who's a Catholic and an evolutionist now, because it doesn't make sense. It's not coherent, So yeah, you're constantly in a state of catechesis forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, just in a rush to just know the things that about the faith that I think a good Catholic should know. And then there's the entertainment side of it, where let's talk about, and you guys just had Ibarra? What was his name?
Yeah, Eric Ibarra.
Eric Ibarra.
That's awesome. Like his episode with Matt Frad was really great. And so just, those aren't, not necessarily going there to learn anything, not going there necessarily for catechesis, but just conversations about, Catholicism, the faith, and everything like that. So I'm glad I found you guys, because it's helped to, it's really been like a full transformation of. I used to listen to all Opie and Anthony, creepypasta, tons of stuff, and this wasn't even that long ago.
Yeah, you want to know something though? Like our show wouldn't have the feel it does without me listening to O&A growing up. Like the idea of just like a laid back hang, no matter who's on, because I there was so much Catholic content out there of just a single person talking into a microphone. Like, I mean, you got Taylor Marshall, Tim Gordon, all those guys who I like, but it's not much conversation. So I wanted to have kind of like a laid back way you feel like when you're watching the show, you just hanging with us, and we're constantly popping comments up. It's like the instant feedback they had back in the day when they were on like that. Yeah. And then strangely, when I reached out to you and told you about our show, I sent you the clip of us talking about the Proud Boy sentencing.
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
I was like, oh, we just talked about Gavin last night, and I sent you that clip, and that's how you actually found our show.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. No, it's, you know what, I gotta say though, like one could make the argument, well, that's what Pints of Aquinas feels like. I never called it Pints of Aquinas just accidentally, which is hilarious. Aquinas, it's delicious. No, but Pints of Aquinas, you could say that, but there is this sort of polish on it. I don't know that it feels like here, you know, kind of anything could happen. You know, and that's due to your unhinged nature. And
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm like, I asked Ryan, like when we first started texting and stuff, I'm like, have you ever been to Holy Innocents in Manhattan? He's like, no, I didn't even know they had a Latin Mass in Manhattan. I'm like, you're coming on I'm like, you're coming for the Easter Vigil, you're bringing your wife and kids, I'm taking you out to dinner, you're coming. He's like, that's the most Italian thing I've ever had anybody say.
Literally the most Italian Roman invite ever. You're doing I'm your friend now. And I'm like, hey.
That's how it works with him. I get a call on a Saturday morning, 7 a.m. Next thing you know, I'm his best friend.
I do it with everybody.
I love it. It's great. It's there's zero trepidation whatsoever. It's like, hey, you're in. Get in there. It's like,
dude, I feel like it's hard to make friends, right? Like it's a weird thing, especially like, dude, I have nobody in my regular life. I you know what? That's not fair. I have my brothers and like I have a cousin, but like in your everyday, I go to work every day. I'm a construction worker. I'm not like talking about Catholicism with my friends at work for the most part. I mean, something might come up here and there, but like you need to have guys to shoot the crap with about the faith to like it just builds a sense of camaraderie amongst your Catholic brothers. I think it's important.
Totally. I have friends that are, you know, it's really like a family of you know, my Catholic friends and even acquaintances and everybody at the parish that we go to.
Such a great parish, yeah.
Like, there are like it is like a family reunion where you're like, all right, I know you guys are here, you're always here, and it's kind of like up to you whether like I'm gonna explore our friendship and in our relationship a little more today. It's like you kind of, there's so many people that you can engage with, and you know, this guy I had never talked to before, he's one of the guy who serves there. Yeah. And that was great. And I've seen him a million times. So like I know him to an extent. I know that we share the same sense of reality, which is the biggest part. I used to think that conservatism was that shared reality that we need in order to hold us together. But I think politics will let you down. And that's a truth, quote unquote, that winds up morphing. And where everybody right now that I know that are, you know, I've heard the term intentionally Catholic or purposely Catholic, whatever, that are really driven to it, want a truth, that like an unmalleable truth that won't be bent or swayed. So,
and there's something about like when you seek out a traditional community that everybody there is taking their faith seriously. Like you don't get any accidental Catholics at a traditional parish.
Yeah.
Everyone there is seeking to go deeper with their faith. It's like you don't just I mean, you can accidentally go to a traditional mass, but you know, like my first one was accidental and it transformed me. But pretty much everybody there, and we have a lot of young people at that parish, man. Like go in and it's all just young families, young kids just packed in there. It's standing room only pretty much every Sunday.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's not a shame because there are great parishes everywhere, but it is something that of course you want to share. Like anytime a homily would happen and it is packed out, there's people, yeah, like you said, standing in the back. Sometimes you don't have a spot. It's packed to the brim. You know, if I wanted to, I couldn't fit like 3 more of my friends in there. They probably could stand, but it's like I feel so. I've just felt so grateful that with the priest that just left, you know, to take that job, he was my favorite. Yeah. And you know, actually, I love them all, but they all have a different thing about him. He was a very intellectually based one, so you would come away with knowledge and application of things, and a great exegesis, I guess, on the gospel. But the other ones are one of them, pure heart too, which I love that guy a lot. But I would just be like, I feel like this has to be shared with the world. He has said such things that I wound up telling other people about the concept of what freedom is. It's like, the freedom to partake in sin will lead you to bondage. So that's not true freedom. You know, freedom is freedom from sin. And having the guidelines actually informs freedom more so than anything, like sitting on Netflix with infinite possibilities, just like completely paralyzed by your options. And so he's just that, and then a ton of other homilies, and I'm like, this needs to be blasted out into the world, you know. And it's
So we have I bounce between St. Rocco's and St. Rocco's and St. Matthew's. So the the other parish I go to, the priest that is there is the best homilist I have ever heard in my
I
life.
didn't even know that was a word.
Yeah, he's the
Homilist,
best
yeah.
homilist I've ever heard in my life, and he's retiring in June. He leaves in June. Now that
Wow.
puts that whole parish in jeopardy. We don't know if we're going to even have a Latin mass there anymore. So I'm probably going to wind up at the other one
Yeah.
every week going forward once
Oh,
June
man.
comes.
Mhm.
But I always wanted to go up to him and ask him, "Hey, can I record your homilies and put them on my channel?" It's just I'd be afraid to get him in trouble, especially seeing how many priests have gotten in trouble for their homilies, but they're always rooted in the tradition of the church. He takes you through a history lesson. Like one week he was talking to us about how Rome was founded on Romulus and Remus, and how the church, as it comes in, it's founded on Peter and Paul. And he's like gives you a full theological explanation for how the church actually replaces the Roman Empire. And so it was pretty amazing. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What's up?
I was gonna say, Anthony, do you know how many eagles Romulus saw in the sky when he found
no, I
Rome?
don't. No.
12.
Did he?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
12 apostles.
That's-
Yeah, so all right, so wait, I want to go back because my impression of you watching you through this whole thing, I see you on Compound, you're doing an Asian Pat Dixon, you're doing a Pat Dixon impression, but
Yeah.
you and Gavin seem to become friends during this time. You guys get a little trouble with Keith the Cop because you're doing some shenanigans and
Oh yeah, yeah.
like I literally watched it because I'm sitting in a truck all day. You were saying like the secular stuff you watched. Like the secular stuff I watched would be Kumia's show and Gavin,
Right.
But yeah, so I watched that going on. So when I found out you were Catholic, I'm like, I have to hear this story, man. So
Yeah.
like you're going about just hanging with these comedians. I mean, that's gotta be wild for you as just some kid growing up, and then all of a sudden you're hanging with all these comedians, right?
Yeah, just like it's because I was literally only listening to like Opie and Anthony and maybe some like scary stories. I like horror. I don't know. I do. Actually, our father there that I was talking about, he had a homily about like horror and sci-fi and why the need for that. Anyway, so he's great. But yeah, so I was just listening to Anthony all the time, and I walk into the Compound studio for the first time after being invited by Pat Dixon. But by the way, like Pat Dixon, I would not be here for if it wasn't for him. I did an impression of him on Twitter. Anthony retweeted it and said this is hilarious, and then I called in at a show, and then we had like and usually, I mean, I was watching a lot of Anthony's show, and I never heard a caller stay on the line for longer than like a couple minutes. But we were there, we were talking about impressions and stuff, and he said that was so good, and I was like, this is great. I'm just like a kitchen guy.
Yeah, dude, that's gotta be so great. Yeah, because dude, callers into radio shows are classically horrible. Like I hate call-in sections. So for you to get on and them actually keep you on the phone, you have to be nervous as like anything, just sitting there like, oh man, I don't want to bomb.
And the symbolism, or the parallels between Anthony and I were pretty interesting, because when he was younger, he went on Howard Stern, which was his radio hero, doing an impression of not Stern, but a guy on Stern's show. So just like I did an impression of Pat, a guy on Anthony's show or Anthony's network. So I saw that similarity. He was in a band. I was in a band. He had acne. I had acne. I had dumb big hair like I do now, and he had dumb big hair. I was like, there's just so many parallels there. And so I really related to Anthony a lot, but it's only through Pat Dixon being like, come on my show and impersonate me. Yeah. And it was weird. It was weird for him it was weird for me to do an impression of a guy who's sitting right there. And
so if a lot of people don't know who Pat Dixon is, but he's got a very dry way of speaking. It really was hilarious watching Pat Dixon talk to Pat Dixon sometimes.
Yeah. He's really, I mean, like, he's got something funny about he doesn't force it either. He's just naturally a very funny dude. And it is a dry sort of humor. Sometimes he's not even trying to make you laugh. Like maybe this time we were all having Korean barbecue down the street in like K-Town. And this before you get your entree, they give you like a bowl of random crap.
Miso soup or something.
Yeah, miso soup. They give you like some cabbage and some whatever, and they put like a bowl of onions in front of Pat. That was the only place there was room for. He's like, "Oh, great, my raw onions are here." Just like all that. But me and him would walk through the city smoking cigarettes when I used to smoke, and just chatting. And he really spent a lot of time imparting a lot of knowledge and just being friends. So that guy really has got a special place in my heart. So he invited me on to do a show, and one of the things that this is where the Christianity starts to be naturally a part of this story. What Crime Report is it's stories from New York City, ripped from the headlines, and then we make fun of them.
Mm-hmm.
There were times that I remember having this turmoil within myself because we would be making fun of death, and and it's really, I gotta say though, like it's totally on me and was on me, and it's only I'm responsible for how I would like to approach making that funny. And it's like not proud to say that a lot of the times it would just be like a complete and direct neglect of like the sanctity of life to make these jokes. And I remember struggling with that. It's like it is funny, but it is horrific. And there's a trade-off there. And in life you have this innocence that you come into the world with, and then something takes it away. I don't know if you're wronged or something and you have hate in your heart or something, or you are attracted to.
I think a lot of time it's lust for men, right? Like you get sidetracked. Like for most men, it's that's kind of what takes you away. So like, did you
get lust for men? And I thought you were kidding.
No, not lust for men. For men, lust is the thing that drags away from the faith. Oh god, I forgot I was talking to.
I'm cutting that one up.
So wait, did you grow up Catholic, or did you like what's your early childhood experience? Is there any faith as you're coming up?
At that time, it was just falling away from Catholicism. That's the only faith it was. I mean, my parents. I was baptized Catholic. I remember going, when I was very young, to mass and church. But yeah, I guess I can't make the distinction of if it was a Catholic church or not, but I'm guessing it was. They were Catholic, my family, the Puerto Rican side of my family. And I think when they moved out of the Bronx, I don't know if they just they just went to the nearest church possible. There's this scary thing that happens with cradle Catholics, possibly. I don't want to speak from all. I don't think that's fair, but with my family, is that sure they were raised in it and the sacraments are a part of their life and everything, but it's starting to get to a point where like my aunt, she's Catholic to this day, but she's like, yeah, but we don't pray to Mary. That's the thing. You're not supposed to do it. And I'm like, well, I don't know if you're like if you believe that, then you're pretty much just like mentally Protestant.
It's just
you don't have to pray to
horrible.
Mary. You literally don't have to, but she says
horrible catechesis though. No, but it's not that. Okay, so you don't have to. You should be. Like you definitely should be. I even get annoyed when Catholics are constantly like, we don't worship Mary. It's like, you really don't understand the meaning of the word worship if you say that. Like, no, we don't worship her. She's not a deity, but the word worship is so weird and twisted in English. Like you would call a king your worship in medieval times. It's just they just really don't understand that, like the role that Mary plays at all. It's like, if you really think about it, the God who created the universe is going to come into the world, and he chooses this one. Like he's going to come from all eternity and come into the world and come through this one. Like, how do you not drop to your knees to that woman? Like she brought God to us.
She's very simple. She bore God in her womb.
Yeah. Like how could that just be nothing?
And it's so funny that I mean, like all the interactions I have with Protestants on Twitter, I always try to make sure that, especially like, because as a Catholic, it feels like not only are we responsible, we have this unique sort of responsibility to answer for the Pope or something, or like we have to, it's a thing that comes with it. No other faith really has to defend or explain
Yeah, none of the Protestant sects have to do that. The Protestants can't agree on anything with each other except that the Catholic Church is wrong.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing they all get wrong.
That should be just a caution sign of that. Like, we did that interview, another sidetrack real quick, but we did that debate about the Jewish tunnels or something Jewish debate with Gavin, and he was on the Zionist side.
It was a debate on Zionism, yeah.
And he wound up leaving the debate because the guy was like, he was asked, would you rather eliminate Muslims or Catholics from the earth? He's like, oh, that's easy, Catholics. And he's like, what? And he leaves. And it's like, you know what? I'm so glad you said that. Confirms, the fact that he said none of these other Christianity denominations are a threat. You should look at that and be like, that's not good.
Not only did he say they're not a threat, he was praising Protestantism.
Yeah.
He's like, that's the true Christianity. The Catholics are the Nicene, this and that. Like, this guy, you want to know.
You want to be proud. A lot of people are proud of their creations. You can't blame them. Just kidding. Father Maudsley, watch that episode. Great episode. We've really seen it. Yeah, for real. But so Catholicism being so uniquely attacked and on with Protestants on Twitter and even friends of mine and stuff, it's like it sharpens your faith so much. Like there's no topic that I'm afraid to defend. But when I was a Protestant, not strengthened with like you have to know your faith. I mean, it's just there are answers when you're like, I don't know if it's okay to do this or do that. Well, the church fathers do. The living body of the church right now has made statements on things like contraception, abortion, things that were not then and are now. There's an answer for it. There is a right and wrong, and there will continue to be a right and a wrong, no matter how obfuscated the root of the matter is getting by, well, is it technically cheating if it's a robot? It's no, you can't screw a robot.
These people. Oh man. So okay, so now you have a
Ryan just
away.
lost
Now,
the entire Japanese audience right there.
I'm banned from the country. I work for a rival company.
You go through this whole all right, so you were raised in the sacraments but never catechized. So basically what my situation was. Then you start hanging out with all these comedians and stuff, and the first thing that strikes you is just the gallows humor that you're starting to play around with. I'll try and get this back on track a little.
Sure. Yeah, no, thank you. And yeah, I quickly got desensitized, to it. And it was only like a couple weeks in where I was like, well, hey, listen, this is the job, this is the gig, and it's but at no point did it occur to me that you could there is a way to approach that the right way. You just don't have to, it's up to you where you place that joke.
Yeah.
You don't have to. So, and there's that conflict of morality, but the desensitization, happened there, and it's nobody's to blame but myself for that. But, if in daily circumstances, when there's like a topic or a joke to be made or something, I think twice because, like we have that unique responsibility to represent the faith in a way because it is such like a monolith to outsiders or people that already have just been propagandized to think it's something and then it's not.
Yeah.
Like the Fulton Sheen, the quote about, nobody that knows the church would hate it, essentially. I know the quote, by the way. It's just
it's like there's not a single person in the world who hates the church, but there's millions upon millions who hate what they think is the church or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
So I'm, trying to carry myself these days. It's a challenge, but I appreciate that challenge, and that's kind of where I am now. That's where it comes full circle, I think, for me. But as far as the actual faith goes, I was non-denominational. I had a relationship with Jesus Christ, and I always had and always felt, even in my most like rebellious, faux atheist sort of scientific reading, like about the string theory, reading Ann Taggart, I think her name's the Field book about all this hippy dippy crap, which some of them wouldn't even be opposed to the faith, but some of it is, like it's filling the creation myth or whatever, creation legend.
Yeah, Michael Hitchcock wasn't like the idea of the word myth.
There was such a catchy phrase. I was starting to use it, and then I was like, oh man, we got to say legend now. It
But
doesn't
I'll still fight for my position on that. It's
You're right about myth. No offense,
I
Michael.
know, and I love Michael
Yeah.
Hitchcock, but you can disagree on something. It's
Yeah.
it's a myth. I mean, it's not. Oh man, I don't want to get into that debate.
The
again,
thing
but
is,
it's-
language. Really,
yeah.
it is like a linguistical thing. One of the interesting things that happened on Twitter the other day is somebody tagged me, and it's always the case, like the thing where like Pope Francis just recently cleared up the thing about the blessing of the he made definite what we had been Pope-splaining for finally, and then now comes like a 5-year-old video of something else pops up. They just forget that and they go to something else. I'm kind of a Pope-splainer too, so that's where I'm at. I just want to be the most obedient.
Yeah,
and
dude. We always say that that's such an honorable position to take as a Catholic.
Hmm.
It's just like that should be all of our mode. Is just you defend the Pope as a Catholic. Like so we won't ever. I've stopped defending some of the crazier things, and we'll nitpick at some of it. It's like, come on, this stuff is rough, but I'll never judge someone who is trying to just be a good Catholic and be obedient to the Pope. Sure. I mean, that's the proper position to take as a Catholic.
And likewise, I can't judge people for holding them to a higher standard. They are familiar with the papal succession. They know the popes that came before. They know what things don't pass the smell check, what don't. But for me personally, is I can't be in a rush to look at that so much. I've just got so much to learn and so grateful to be a part of it. I really do feel, and I talked to Milo Yiannopoulos about that. I was like, hey, I'm a confirmed Catholic, and I don't feel like I deserve it. I don't deserve to be associated with any of these great men throughout history and the church as it is now, and the great people that sit next to me and kneel next to me in the pews beside me. And he's like, yeah, that doesn't go away. And I was like, oh, okay. Like part of that doesn't go away. It's like
you have that forever.
Yeah. And I love that about it, because it's never resolved where you're like comfortable. Like I'm good and I could just coast through my faith anymore. And
dude, you're talking about 2,000 years of history, and so much has happened. There's always something new to learn. That's the greatest thing about being Catholic, is that there's little pathways and little off ramps that you can take and just do a deep dive into, and you'll never be like, oh, I know it's not like you just studied the catechism, you know everything. There's so much to it that you can never stop learning about it.
Right. So I mean, growing up knowing that, I mean, the Catholic Church will be represented in movies as Christianity, because it has the most decorum, it has the most like iconic and relatable imagery. So
you'll never see a Protestant exorcist movie.
Exactly. Like that's a perfect way. And even though they're attacked and misrepresented and smeared, they are the ones, both positively and negatively portrayed mostly through cinema and stuff. So I went through life as a Christian and asking myself, like, when do I get to receive? Or when do I go into the confession booth? And it's like, oh, honey, we don't have that. I remember hearing that when I was a kid. And I'm like, well, why? Like, I want those things. I was always attracted to that since, I don't know. I thought that they were necessary things. I knew this. And what I didn't want was actually, it's funny how naturally I had an inclination and a rejection of both the things that Catholicism allows. Like Milo also, I was talking to him. So there's a couple of people that were kind of pushing me towards Catholicism. Milo was one of them. Gavin was one of them. Nick Fuentes, passively by listening to him and talking about the faith. My wife was a big one. And my friend Whit, who sent me my first rosary. Dan, of course, who invited me to this, to the Latin Mass, which changed everything. I mean, because there will be no funny business. There's no Eucharistic ministers. There's no female reading the what did she read?
Even the Novus Ordo, you'll get a woman lector reading like the first reading, and the letters.
I mean, it's easily 85% of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. Yeah.
So it was just kind of like modernist proof, and that really sailed me into it. But I all of these people have said at least one thing that kept ringing in my head. And with Whit, the one who sent me this rosary, he's like, you can come home anytime you want. It's the church that Christ founded. And it was so impossible to get over that. And I
Yeah.
wanted to be, and I knew at some point it was a matter of laziness where I was like, I don't want to have to like do all the things. And I wasn't ready to dedicate myself. And it was purely that. And I was afraid. And I knew that unlike any other church, you know, there might be some other churches that have a bar of entry, but Catholicism truly does have a bar of entry. It says you need to know your faith. You need to be confirmed. There's a process. We want to know that you know what you're getting into, you know your faith, you know how to defend it, how to live it, because it is a living faith. You have to walk it and participate in it.
The only thing comparable would be orthodoxy, you know, and it's why there's a different conversation between Catholics and Protestants than there is between Catholic and Orthodox. Like it's such a deeper faith for the Orthodox than it is the Protestants. The Protestants have such a shallow theology. It's like just a very surface level, where I actually can pick some things up from the Orthodox that fit in very well with being a Catholic. So things like that.
I remember being essentially Protestant, non-denominational, without a church. There are plenty of these people that I know. I was talking to a couple of them last night in my music group they don't go to church, or they're shopping around, be like, yeah, I tried this kind of church. We're going to have to keep looking around. And that's so sad it's so sad to have that, you know. And it's like, I remember feeling very like attacked by Catholics when I was a Protestant, because it's almost like we're saying you don't know Jesus and you don't have a relationship with God. That's not true. They do have a piece of truth. They are in proximity to the truth. It's just, there's so much more, you know. You're missing on the proper way of worship. You're missing on walking, you know, living out the faith. And, you know, this whole you know, the faith alone thing is wild, because sometime during the conversation last night, it was like, well, what's so bad about the trans church with the trans flag? Aren't they saved by their faith alone? What's the problem? He's like, yeah, but it's like that's a sin. And I was like, but you sin. So what's the difference? Is they're saying a super sin? Are you going to go to super heaven and they go to
Oh,
heaven?
you brought it up. Okay, that's actually a really great. Right. Sometimes I'll say to Protestants, I'll say, what must I do to be saved? And they'll say, believe in the Lord Jesus and trust in it. And I'm like, all right, I did that. And I say, no, you're Catholic, you can't be saved. It's like, but wait a minute.
But you know why? It's because you have faith in traditions, and you in the sacraments. It's like, but hold on a second. So if you have faith and then you do things to worship, aren't you working? Aren't you doing things? So like now you're putting faith in working. It's so sick. It's so circular. And
it's very circular. Yeah. I like to say, like, if they say you worship Mary, I say, I don't worship Mary. I worship statues of Mary. What are you talking about?
I've seen you on Twitter. You really are a menace over there. What's another one? Like, oh, we're not allowed to read the Bible. Yeah. Honestly, Milo, so I got sidetracked again, but Milo was like, yeah, you shouldn't just be reading the Bible on your own. That's a very Protestant thing. And I'm like, and the reason why is I don't have proper knowledge to put exegesis on this. I would rather trust people that know what this means. And instead of fortune cooking the Bible, or, you know, making Christ a symbol of just a beautiful thing, to really know what these things mean, instead of like attaching onto scripture and applying it to your life like a fortune cookie or a tramp stamp or something, or a bumper sticker.
I think Catholics do need to be like, they need to regularly be reading the Gospels, and when reading the epistles, when something seems tricky, you need to check it against the church. Because you should be reading scripture. I understand what Milo was saying. Like, you just, like, I don't like the idea of just picking up the Bible, picking a verse for the day. Like, that's not, but you absolutely should be familiar with, especially the New Testament. And then when you really start to see how typology works, the Old Testament comes alive, and you start to see these stories, how they're all prefiguring Christ. And it really is an awesome thing when you know how to read it.
That's my big thing now. So usually what I'll do is I'll explore, you know, I'll explore a matter of faith or a matter of the Gospels, or some sort of, like you said, pointing to Christ in the Old Testament. And from that, I will go to that scripture and read that. I want like a guided tour. You know, what is there when I get there? And knowing the context of it really does matter. It super matters. You know, without context, pretext, it warps the meaning of things. And I mean, scripture could be used against itself. Like, what is it? Paul's epistle to is it the Corinthians? Where is that the faith alone one? where later on it's to the Romans, right?
The Romans.
Yeah. And then later on he says it totally
it's the obedience of faith. That's what it is. He says all these things work to the obedience of faith. He never says faith alone. He says you are saved by faith through grace, and that's in Ephesians. But Romans, the whole idea of Romans, if you actually pay attention to what he's saying, he's talking about the obedience of faith. So like Protestants mess up what their understandings of works are. When Paul's talking about works, he's talking about works of the old law. He's talking about the ancient, like the Jewish works of the law. He's not talking about works of love, works of charity ever, Yeah. So there's a way in which you could be a Pharisee as a Catholic if you're just going through the sacraments as like a mechanism without actually engaging in your faith whatsoever. It's just like, well, I go to church, I'm good. Like that could be a form of Phariseeism.
Or it's like Pelagianism.
Right.
Yeah. Going through the motions and not feeling anything, doing anything. Like, the difference between like saying like, I love you, or like, I love you.
Yeah.
Like completely empty of, which is how us Japanese people do it. But we mean I love you, gong, Pokemon rules. I don't know.
So you get married before your conversion though, huh?
Yeah. So my wife, she played a major role in that. In actually probably the most direct way, because we wanted to go to church with each other, and when there's a relationship of a non-denominational churchless Protestant and a Catholic, you go to the Catholic Church because it's a sin for her not to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like the importance is there, and I'm through her, I'm learning so much. She's retained so much, from her upbringing that she was able to impart on me, and then at some level, you get invited to a traditional Latin mass, your wife says we're going to this church or whatever, but at some point it became autonomous, where it's like I'm attracted to all of these things. I want to on my own just wander and learn the faith, and I'm interested in this and that. And so it very quickly I was like I just dove into it myself. It didn't take very long at all. It had a fullness to it that is, immediately visible with the intricacy and the ornateness of the church. And there's just nothing, if you look at St. Pat's Cathedral, it's like, that's what I compare Catholicism to. It's every square inch is intentional and nothing is left bare. There's just, just books upon books about, from the church fathers and writings, and these are people in love and passionately trying to explain and make this a compendium. Like everybody has this compulsion to, when you have it, you want to share it, and that's all I'm doing. And I'm trying to be as charitable as possible to my Protestant bros and sisters out there. Well, at times I fail at that, but really it's like, when you and your wife have a movie or a show.
Yeah.
When you start watching it without her, you're like,
oh, that's like cheating.
I need her here. Like, because I feel cheating. Bad. It's like, I'm not enjoying this unless there's somebody with me to enjoy this with.
If you are watching a show with your wife and you watch an episode without her, that's like committing adultery, dude. Like,
what's funny is like just sitting there and knowing what's going to happen, and then just waiting, and then something happens. You're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, faking surprise with your spouse.
Did you see that? She's like, I know you watched it without me.
Dude, the difference in Protestantism and Catholicism is the difference in St. Pat's Cathedral and a mega church in the round or something, like there really is this, there's something about those cathedrals that when they built them, I mean, some of those medieval European cathedrals took centuries. Like some of them took like 600 years to build. I mean, for you to have that much like forethought, like, okay, we want to enjoy this, our grandkids want to enjoy this, our great, like you're thinking in centuries at that point. There's something above that you're aiming towards that modern man just cannot even grasp. I mean, if we don't have our instant gratification, we won't even bother anymore.
Right. And just to see past, like the story has not been told when you die.
Yeah.
You know, and that really is, I don't know if it's uniquely Catholic. I'm sure there are other Christians that feel that way too. But I mean, the dedication, like I don't know how any atheist could look at the fruits of the church and say that there's nothing there, that this is an empty, it's just such a piss poor, you know, like assumption that just like, well, there's just some imaginary dude up there. Like honestly, talking to Protestants is probably, it's harder to bring them in close into the family and bring like, come on, come home,
Yeah.
come to Catholicism, dude. You're gonna love it. We're gonna be family. You can compare it to like, it was compared to music yesterday. It's like, but the point is that it's harder to talk to Protestants about this than atheists sometimes, I find, but because I think everybody's looking for a truth now that the world is so malleable. But last night in the thing, they compared it to like, well, why do we have to be Catholic? Like, why can't, that's like classical music. Why do we all have to play classical music? What if I want to play rock and roll? And I'm like, okay, what you're saying, I get the analogy, but this is really the analogy. How about you gut all of the music theory of classical music? You throw away notes, you throw away scales, and now we're supposed to play music together. You know, you need to know a power chord before we start jamming together. So that's
it's also like you were saying with the family aspect, right? Like, is God a polygamist? Does God have multiple families? No, God has one bride, one family. Like Christ has one bride. He's not a polygamist. He doesn't have multiple brides. And there's the whole idea of coming around the Father's table, which I know that's very Novus Ordo-y, but coming around the Father's table for the sacrifice, we're baptized in his name. So like, how do you know your children are like, how do my children know we're a family? They come around my table every night. They have my name. There's things about a family that are very significant that you can't just have, you know, the Protestants are basically like that uncle that doesn't talk to the family anymore. They're just off doing their own thing and they don't associate with the rest of us. It's like, no, the familial aspect of being a Christian is probably one of the most important aspects of it.
Yeah, it's, you know, like even with friendship, friendship is a thing you have to practice and enact. You know, it's not just like, you're my friend, bam, you know, you're coming to Easter with me and I'm going to pick you up, we're going to eat dinner. You have to have me on your podcast. That was a jab at you.
No, because I'm insistent upon things. I had to force you in over here. I was trying to think, like, was there an aha moment for you?
Yeah, it was a series of tumbling down the stairs of the aha, or tumbling up the stairs, truly. But yeah, it's just one thing after another. Once you like the first time I prayed the rosary, I was like, we got to pray this faster. Let's go. Like I was really blasting through it really quick. And then I was like, it was maybe 2 after that where you realize that this is about Christ. You know, it really is. This is yes, there are Hail Marys on the way there, but even in there you're referencing Christ and, you know, beholding his mother, and it's beautiful. And then once you see the beauty of that, you're like, well, all these decades, this is the life of Christ through these mysteries, through the decades and the different mysteries and the different days. And you're like, wow, I mean, one, it's a lot to learn, but two, it's like, I want to learn it all. Like I want to understand, you know, what about those luminous mysteries? Should we do them? Should we not? I don't do them, but I don't know what the deal with that is.
You're a trad, dude. Dude, you want to know you want to know something? It's I always love talking to especially because like this has been like in the past 2 or 3 years for you, right? It hasn't been that much longer, right? It's like the past, hearing a new convert is it's exciting, especially for guys who have like don't ever let the faith become humdrum, you know, like that's why I love hearing conversion stories, because you're so excited about some of these things that it's like, if you're Catholic for a long time, it's like, okay, yeah, you already learned that. Oh, but there's something deeper to be found in that thing that you think you already learned. So to hear you talk with excitement about even praying the rosary, it's like, it's making me want to pick up my rosary, you know?
Yeah. Oh, it's so great. Yeah. And you know that I tried to do it also like the different way, like the way the Dominican friars do it. Because Gregory Pine talking to Matt Fradd about, you know, adding more to it could sometimes hold you back from doing it every night, you know, which is the goal. And yeah, I just love, and you know, sometimes I would not, this is a weird habit of mine. I would never pray for myself or my family out of like guilt, like that would be too selfish. But you know, that gets cleared up pretty quick when you know that, you know, God wants you to rely on him. He wants you to to need him, and he wants you to surrender these things. So I started doing that, and now the intentions before the rosary have gotten so long, like almost longer than the rosary itself. And then you're just talking to God. And this sort of guidance is what I needed. But before I would only talk to Christ when I ultimately needed to, because I know he watches me, sees me, knows my heart and my thoughts. So we're good.
Mhm.
Basically, me living my life as a prayer. And no, it's not. You've set aside no time to worship. It's just like a one-way gimme thing. But in a way, I wouldn't have done it any other way, because it feels like there was a growth needed to get to this point where I am, and to love everything that I'm learning about it.
What was your wife's reaction to the first traditional mass you guys went to?
I don't remember. I think most it's like people kind of dissolve when you're there, and you're just like in the moment. It was confusing at first, but and it was different. I remember the Kyrie eleison. It was like, what is the thing that they keep saying at the end there? And it's like I was like the way my daughter is now, where she'll just go, yeah. She says song. She thinks it's song because like it's a song.
Yeah. Dude, so all right, so your kids are so little right now, so it gets so exciting especially as your kids hit like 5 or 6 and you're saying prayers with them at bedtime. They will drag prayers on forever because they don't want to go to bed.
Right.
So they'll you'll tell your kids, all right, we're just going to do the Our Father, Hail Mary. Say, no, let's do the rosary. Like your kids will want to do the rosary because they just anything but sleep, so they'll, and the little things that you teach your kids it's just, I remember like my kids just being so excited that I was coming in to pray the rosary with them, and man, that choir at our church is so amazing. So hearing that as a little kid, I couldn't even imagine like that being my experience of church as a little kid.
Yeah. I mean, and those hymns that they'll sing at the Novus Ordo that we were going to before we found the traditional Latin Mass was there. Some of them were earbugs, but I don't know if it was you who said it. I think it might have been. It's like, if they are, no, it was you that said it. You're like, you'll find yourself doing the dishes and you're like, just singing, for me, it's Pater Noster, the Pater Noster, the whole thing, like a couple times a day, just in my stairwell, it's like reverbed out. It sounds monastery. Like, Pater Noster, qui es in cielo.
I wake my kids up with the Asperger's Me on Sunday.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sing it throughout the house. But yeah, like I'll sing the Kyrie while you're just sitting at the kitchen doing something. It's just those songs just really do just get stuck because they're beautiful. But I'll tell you, man, that even the Novus Ordo songs, they'll get stuck in your head too.
Yeah, it is different. And I think there is a distinction. One is like it's an earworm, and the other is because it's just kind of a part of you, like the Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. Or something. That should be a breathing sort of prayer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of times to say it, and it cuts off any thought that you could, any like thought path that you could possibly follow that would now be a sinful thought. Before you even get there, you can just say that and be like, God's watching me, and I'm not going to think about X.
Practicing the presence of God is like, it's such an important thing, right? Like really actually practicing God's presence with you so that you I mean, dude, so especially early on in your conversion. Well, the thing is, in your early conversion, a lot of times God will remove temptation from you because you have that on fire experience. But then as time goes on, you have to really train yourself not to fall back into old habits and things like that. Like the faith can get trickier as you go along because it does kind of get mundane at times. Dude, this show has been so good for us to get rid of the mundaneness. I don't know if that's a word, but
going through the motions of it or taking it for granted, or just being like, well, it's a part of my life. And it's like, it allows for slippage when you're like, it's like when you have a job for too long, you're just like, I could take a nap on the desk. I don't do that, by the way.
Well, I was telling somebody, like, sometimes I do things and I don't know why I'm doing them. And the moon landing is one of those things, right? So it starts off as a troll.
Again.
No, but it starts off as a troll, right? And I'm just like, because I don't know about the moon landing. Like, who cares?
Right.
But what I started
is this? Are you about to claim that this is like divinely inspired?
No. I'm saying sometimes I don't know why I do things, and then they kind of just piece together for me through conversations I'm having with people. I didn't know why I was playing around with the moon landing thing. I just thought it was funny to watch guys like Trent Horn get their underwear in a wedgie, you know. It's like Eric Salmon's getting mad at me over me saying the moon landing is nonsense. But what I realized is it's connected to evolution, because an evolutionist has a very materialist mindset, and the moon landing is very much connected to that, because you're seeing the stars as just burning balls of gas. They're in galaxies far, far away, right? Where when you read scripture and you read Genesis, and God says to Abraham, or Abram at the time, he says, your descendants will be as the stars. Now, when we hear that, we're thinking just numbers, like, oh, as many as the stars, like look, a numerical value. But that's not what he's just saying. He is saying that, but he's talking about your descendants will be as the stars. Now, to a person in the ancient world, the stars meant something. The stars were principalities, right? Yeah. So they weren't just these burning gas balls. Like you look at every ancient like pagan religion, and they have these structures that are figured out according to the patterns of the stars, right? Like every single one of them, the pyramids are like that, where they're lined up with whatever constellation and things like that. So when God says to Abram, your descendants will be as the stars, it's more like your descendants will be principalities upon the earth, right? Yeah. So when you have the moon landing and you're saying, oh, the moon landing is real, what you're really saying is the meaning of the moon is gone. The moon is significant because Our Lady in Revelation 12 is clothed with the sun, with the stars and the moon, and all that imagery you're getting, because that means something. Like this, the moon is a reflection of the sun. It's a symbol of the church. It's so much going on there that when you think in terms of evolution, of course you believe we landed on the moon without a second thought. Like all of this comes together. It's not just so simple as Anthony's being a troll. I know it seems like I'm doing that sometimes, but
oh man,
I just see the evolution mindset as just destroying people's ability to see the meaning behind God's creation.
Well, it's the faith of science is basically what it is. You know, it's so funny where people don't realize that they're appealing to whatever the term is. They're appealing to higher knowledge or whatever, that they have a faith in the guy with the lab coat or whatever that says billion, McGilligan, fee, 5 billion miles away.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it may as well say a bajillion years ago.
You just say bajillion, Tyson. But it's funny because they're like, okay, we don't know this percentage, and we don't know what exactly caused it, and they never leave room for God, which is dishonest. It's like you don't leave room for a creator, and it's like you are just an ingrate. You disgust me.
Well, dude,
I throw all knowledge of like time, space, dinosaurs, all that crap. I just throw it away. I'm like, I'm starting from scratch, just like with the Catholic Church, how demonized it is and propagandized against it. Or the propaganda against it. You have to unlearn so much to get to the truth. I want to leave all, empty out the whole apartment full of lawn chairs and IKEA furniture, and like fill it with antiquity and beauty, and just
it's so hard to unlearn certain things, man. It really is, dude. But even like what you're saying, like they get on. Think about during COVID when they would interview a scientist or a doctor, they'd wear their lab coat. Like those are vestments. Because they're the new priest class. Like that, people don't realize the subliminal things that are going on. They're giving you the new hierarchy of the new religion in their lab coats, telling you this is what you need to do to be saved. Like that's not what you need to do to be saved.
Right.
You know,
it really is that partake in this sacrament of vaccine of, I don't know if we could even say the word, the jab. And then you have, Lord Fauci. Oh, we honor Lord Fauci. They even had hymns for it. That guy with the sign, Mr. Fauci, give me the jab.
Yeah, dude.
It's like,
dude, and people don't see that it's liturgical. Like all the things they're doing are liturgical, right? Like human beings are liturgical creatures, man. Like God made us for liturgy. So if they're not in a proper liturgy, they're going to make their own liturgy. And I mean, you go to a baseball game and you see like a guy will make sure he's wearing the right socks for good luck and things like that. Like that's all liturgical stuff and religious stuff that people are doing. They just don't realize it.
And that's what it's like. I'm sure, and I like how I have a bow tie and my hair's back for the thumbnail. That looks like I'm about to teach anybody anything. Like that's just so not the case. The most misleading thumbnail ever. I loved it, by the way, Rob. But
When I saw that picture on Twitter, I'm like, I'm using that.
I'm using Asian Willy Wonka. Somebody said Doctor Who HU, and I was like, that's hilarious. So good. But like I'm not teaching anybody anything but in fact I forgot the point. So
well, somebody said avoiding Babylon is a sick name. The problem with our name is that so many people think we're not Catholic. Because Protestants warp that term so much, they call the Catholic Church the whore of Babylon and things like that. So we've found a lot of people will be like, dude, I never watched your show because we thought you were Protestant talking against the Catholic Church,
I thought you were Jamaican. Welcome to Avoiding Babylon. I was like, the dudes are cool.
The first year we did this show was a weird journey, man. So we started off jumping into these ancient faiths and like these ancient religions, and I started seeing like a new religion coming up. It was like you see the rainbow flag and you see like some of these old the way they worshipped in these ancient cults had a lot to do with orgiastic stuff, and the priests would castrate themselves and wear women's clothing, things like that. So I'm seeing all this stuff pop up, and we're learning by having these conversations with different people. So it culminated in a talk I gave in June at a conference, and after that conference it was almost like a stand-up working out a set, right? So for a year we're learning all these different things, and then I go and I deliver my set in June at a conference. And I remember after that conference, I'm like, oh man, what are we going to talk about now? Like I kind of like put it all together and I put it into a good hour, and I delivered it. So I was really worried about the next year. And then this last year has been this whole evolution thing, and just coming across this whole creation is such a more solid position than evolution. And it's not just that the science is shoddy, it's that the story sucks.
And the science is shoddy too.
And the science is shoddy, but it's every single civilization needs a creation myth. And when you I tried watching this Ancient Earth series on Amazon Prime, and I used to be able to watch something like that, and I'd be like, oh, this is cool, and I watch it. Right. I tried putting it on the other day, and in episode 1, I'm screaming at my TV. I'm like, this is such nonsense. How do you know this? You're making this up. It's so retarded.
I refuse. Like, I won't even. There's so much that I would like to, and out of curiosity, I would like to see, and that was one of them. Like Graham Hancock's, it was Graham Hancock, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah.
I thought it was on I thought it was on Netflix. It could be on Amazon Pro, whatever.
It was.
I refuse to watch it and entertain it because you are being propagandized.
Here's what I got from that documentary. So ancient Rob's gonna get annoyed. So Ancient Apocalypse. What I got from it is it's
funny you even call it a documentary.
It's really not. It's complete nonsense. Fiction. It's fan fiction, right? So, but what I got from it was a secular guy going and checking these different things around the world and trying to challenge
the paradigm,
the status quo, right? And they start calling him a racist.
Yeah.
And they start calling him all these names. And it's like, this guy's trying to present evidence that shows your storyline doesn't add up, and your immediate attack is not to counter his evidence and say, this is why you're wrong. It's to call him a racist and a bigot and all these different things. And I'm saying, okay, we have no idea what the world was like pre-flood. We just don't. We don't know what technology existed. The giants, the Nephilim, could have helped build these giant structures, and we just don't even know. Every one of these cultures had a giant myth. Every one of them had a flood narrative. Every one of them had all these things. So when Graham Hancock comes in and he starts saying, like, yeah, the timing doesn't add up to what you guys are saying human flourishing begins and goes about, they just attack him full out. So I'm saying if he gets attacked, there's something there.
Right. Oh, so even if he's not leading towards the path of creationism, he is challenging their narrative.
That's it. And that's all I took from it. Yeah, so
God-
it wasn't like I learned something from him.
Yeah.
I saw, watching how they treated him by challenging their narrative made me go, "What, dude? There's clearly." It's the same thing with when you watched during the pandemic. If anybody tried to push back on some of that information, you saw the same attack happen, right?
Mhm.
So that same thing happens with climate change. If you try to challenge the climate change narrative, they will attack you in the same way.
Yeah.
The same thing goes with evolution. You'll get the same attacking. So this isn't about science. This is about a narrative that they want to exist. And if you challenge that narrative, you will be attacked and called a racist or a complete moron or an idiot,
Right.
things like that. And they try to just discredit you.
This is it's a great opportunity to be a fool for Christ, because you will be ridiculed for saying this dinosaur thing doesn't smell right. Maybe dragons.
Yeah.
I will be laughed at. I don't care. I don't
Well,
care.
Ryan, think about this. So, like, all right. So
Yeah.
every single culture had dragons. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you look at in China, I forget if it's like Indonesia or whatever. Cultures
You about to
completely
tell me about Asia.
So, well, China, the Chinese dragon looks like a serpent, right? It's
course.
that. Rob, pull up a Chinese dragon, and then there's another one that's like on the other side of the world. What did I miss? I'm talking too much.
Pull up a Chinese dragon.
You
That's just
tell
a
me
funny-
both the Chinese dragon.
Pull up
Everyone
the-
knows what they look like.
No, I know, but there's pictures of dragons identical to that from other cultures that are nowhere near China. Is my point, right?
and the Stegosaurus thing, or the Brontosaurus in hieroglyphs.
In the caves, right?
Right.
So, but there was a time when you started seeing modern scientists depicting dinosaurs with feathers and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you remember? Like, there was this weird. All right,
Hated
so that's not the one I'm looking for. I'm looking
I
for the
know
one that
that's why
actually.
I chose it.
You jerk.
It's for you.
So, now I'm not doing my Chinese accent. I told a story about going to confession to a Chinese priest,
Oh wow.
and it was you could barely understand the guy, so I was trying to portray to everybody. No way. What's up, Nick? I was trying to portray to everybody how, Nick, if you rewind 5 minutes, I gave my bringing it full circle thing about the moon landing, because I told him I was going to do that. So yeah, the Chinese priest, but he gave me a penance that changed my life. He told me to set my alarm every day for 3 p.m. and say either a decade of the rosary or
The Divine Mercy.
the Divine Mercy chaplet.
Wow.
And this was years ago, and that's what got porn out of my life. Like,
Wow.
by
Awesome.
setting that reminder every day at 3 p.m., it was the hour of mercy, and I just prayed it every day. And that's literally how my life, my whole spiritual life just changed from that day. But
Yeah, that's a huge one.
yeah, so the dragon thing, the dinosaurs they started depicting with feathers look like dragons. I mean, these are dragons. I mean,
Yeah. You know what's crazy is like the conventional dinosaur was like scales, green, angry,
Mhm.
and then they added feathers to it. I remember as I was a youngster, younger than I was now, and hating that. I'm like, you can't just give them feathers. Like I hated my Jurassic World, Jurassic Park dinosaurs.
Well, that's what it is. We're all affected by the Steven Spielberg version of dinosaurs, right? So somebody was saying to me something about dinosaurs being lizards, and I'm like, but why do you think they're lizards? All we have is bones. We don't know what genus these things come from. We don't know anything. You can tell so little by bones.
You don't know what the word genus means, do you?
Species, I don't know. Whatever. I don't know. I was trying to. Don't make me sound less smart than I want to sound, Rob. Everybody knows I'm a high school dropout. Don't worry. I'm not letting anyone down. Yeah. So all right. So now, all right. So it was a couple of years ago. You've been at this for a couple of years. How has your experience been under? Because it is a challenging time with, like you were saying, with the Pope's planning and stuff, right? It's a difficult papacy. Like, do you remember Benedict's papacy at all? Or he probably wasn't even. Oh, you do.
I remember JP2. I remember when I was a kid, I had a medal. Like, that's the thing. Like, we were always my family did fall away from Catholicism in the going to church and but we always had Mary was always a thing.
Mhm.
And my great grandmother always gave me like some sort of religious thing from when she went to Rome with my great grandfather, and John Paul II medallion thing and some miraculous medals, and like I have these things.
Witchcraft.
Yeah,
It's all Catholic witchcraft.
talismans and sorcery, staffs, bows, and
But think about how now as a Catholic, understanding the incarnational faith and sacramentals, like how meaningful are those things?
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
it just brings so much like Catholics love their sacramentals because we have a very incarnational faith. And when you have a sacramental worldview and you see the world through, through the incarnation, like these things are tangible and they should increase your faith.
When you feel the scapular on your back and you're trying to balance it out, it's just a constant reminder, that like
you're doing it wrong if the front comes all the way down on you.
Yeah, I was doing that for a while, and then my wife's like, "Oh, honey," and she like tied a knot for it. That was great. But yeah, so I remember Pope John Paul II. I remember Benedict. I remember thinking like, "Oh, this is crazy." I remember thinking, "Oh, he's German. That's like a Nazi guy." It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's like that. The whole like now the demonization of Germany. Meanwhile, Japan did some horrific stuff, as I recall. For some reason, they're just completely forgiven, but like there's still this stigma around Germany, and they're still self-flagellating. I'm terrible. I'm so sorry. They're just like.
Meanwhile, Japan, like
if you ever become Pope, it's gonna be like, oh, there's that Tojo guy.
Tojo and Earl, great game, great video game. We saw them walking around, right? They're floating in space.
Not a video game guy. Oh man, yeah, you do see, just as a Catholic, you just have to be prepared to be the mockery of the world. Like they're going to call your Pope a Nazi. This is the first time we're ever in a time where the Pope isn't under assault from the media. It's a strange thing. So when Benedict became Pope, they really ran with the Hitler Youth thing. Yeah, they did, definitely.
Wow. And I was young. I mean, when was that? 94, 96, or was that way later? 98. When was it?
2005 is when he was.
Oh yeah. So I wasn't even that young then. Oh wow. So, but yeah, I mean, high schooler. So I mean, but just attributing German Nazi, that was so immature because he's one of the most. I watch him doing the mass and singing the Pater Noster, and it's like the most beautiful thing because it's so meek. His voice is giving out, and oh man, I love it. It's just like so. I just that's my favorite one. Like John the way Pope John Paul II did it was very like a crooner. Like he really put his diaphragm into it. Creationism, real like very robust.
Yeah.
And there's something just so beautiful about Benedict XVI was so good.
Humble and meek. His Jesus of Nazareth series. He wrote one on Holy Week. Mm-hmm. And if anybody ever, if you guys haven't read that particular, not the whole series, just the Holy Week, what would you call it? Just that book, that book was so good. It had so many deep insights into what's going on in Holy Week. I really love that book.
That's awesome. I'm going to start getting into more like divine intimacy. I really want to get. It's like $80.
That's a great one.
Is it great? Okay, that's awesome. Because I'm
life changing.
I've been
really
attracted to the divine office and the fact that like I know that we have lost a lot to get here, and it's kind of been put on easy mode in a lot of ways, which is very inviting to people coming to the church for the first time. But for me, I'd like to fill up just to the brim. So the divine office is that's tough. Like it requires a lot of dedication, a lot of setting time aside. But I'll do the Vespers. I'll do the Vespers after my rosary. And that's a way to get that in there. But the divine intimacy is like, that's a daily meditation on things in mirroring the liturgical year according to the 1962 missal and everything. So, right. That's awesome.
Yep.
Like,
divine intimacy is one of those, but like Rob, is that? No, you did Jesus Crucified during Lent last year.
School of Jesus Crucified.
School of Jesus Crucified. Yeah. Divine intimacy though, is just like, you get so much packed into these little nuggets that it really is transformative. Wow. I'm going to bring some books to Mass. Dude, when are you going to get Gavin to come to Mass?
He invited himself. He did an Anthony invitation where it's like, I'm coming to Mass. But it turns out he had some sports to do on the Sunday. it's and he thinks that's rather cruel too for the kids. He's like, which I don't get. He's like, why make them do that on Sunday? But he wants to come, and maybe there's a day that'll work out. But he's down.
Yeah, you gotta make sure I know, so I actually go to that church that day, because I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna drag you both out to eat afterward. But if he brings his son, I'll bring my son. They'll, let his son meet somebody his own age. I think how old's his oldest? Do you know?
I don't think it would be his oldest going. I think it would be his youngest. I don't know his age, but he's like not a toddler.
He's like 10 or 11 now.
Middle schoolish or something. Yeah, I think middle schoolish.
Yeah,
or elementary school maybe. I don't know. I have the worst memory in the world, which is honestly terrible.
It was funny listening to him because he has a father's heart, Gavin. He's always talking about little things he did. But even back when the Proud Boys started, people don't realize what he was doing there. He was telling men to stop looking at pornography. Yeah, he's like, guys, stop looking at pornography. And he made it fun. It was like a challenge. Guys, just put down the pornography. You could tell he was very influenced by his Catholicism, but didn't want he was trying to make it so that guys would actually open their eyes to some deeper side. I mean, he told the story of him coming to believe in God is when he just looked at his kid's foot when his child was born. He just went, oh, this is too perfect. There has to be a God.
Right. No, it really is like that. You'll see just the beauty and the form and the marvels of creation and be like, this is not just attributed to just some celestial blast that just happened to all fall in order. It's just so silly. That is the most giant leap of faith ever, and it's a really solipsistic, self-involved sort of idea that we're the coolest thing in the world besides aliens, of course. It's
the aliens thing.
All the breaks in the world.
Everybody kept saying to me, one person said to me, they said, I used to listen to Gavin and I would listen to Ryan, but I don't like his take on the people of the old covenant. So now I don't know if this is Ben under Grace's YouTube channel or if it's actually Grace. I'm not sure which one of them it is, but what does the panel think of Gavin's take on the Israel-Palestine? So we talked about that earlier in the episode. Ryan does not ascribe to Gavin's political views when it comes to the people of the old covenant at all.
It's true. It's really crazy to see that, I mean, we couldn't be more opposed just theologically. Let's say if it was just it's a totally justified opposition. We are at odds. And yet again, I mean, when Adam King says Catholicism, we have a big issue with, all the other Christians are fine. They're great. Actually, we love them. We love the rest of the it's that pops up a red flag. And then also historically there's issues, and it's to share. Father Mosley did something with Kennedy Hall too, which yet again, I listen to guys that are I know that they're trad to the level where they're comfortable with their faith enough to criticize the Pope or whatever like that. But
you can still get something from everybody.
I do. I definitely do. Taylor Marshall, I'm wary of things like that. And I remember when Patrick Coffin DM'd me, because me and Gavin did an interview.
Patrick actually, when he heard, so when we had Patrick on a couple weeks ago, I told him I was getting you on. He's like, "Oh, give Ryan a big hug for me."
That's awesome. Yeah, I really like that guy. And it's so me and Gavin, I was just teching for it, but Gavin did an interview with Pat, so he remembers me from that, and he DM'd me and he was like, "Hey man, what's going on?" And I didn't respond to it at first because I thought he was a sedevacantist, so I was just afraid to talk to him because I was like, I know this guy's super smart. I'm not trying to, but he's not. He's got his own thing going on, and it's
listen, here's the thing:
he will ever make me feel like dirt for being hey, I don't know about that.
We all have to have empathy for each other's positions right now. It's just what it comes down to. It's it doesn't make us I really get frustrated with this. The whole thing is, it's a confusing time. Have empathy for every position. I don't agree with Patrick's Benedict was Pope thing, but I still love Patrick, and I understand why he believes that. Like, I completely understand why he believes that. I also understand why somebody would be a Pope's planner, and I also understand all the positions. My line for me is sedevacantism. It's like, that's you've made yourself above all authority and just made yourself. So the balance is,
plus they're insufferable.
They are the most insufferable, annoying people on the planet. So the balance is somewhere between gaslighting people and sedevacantism. You have to, play inside the boundaries there. It's like I very intentionally go to a diocesan Latin mass. I don't ever want to be separated from the communion of the church.
Totally. Yeah. My buddy of mine, Nick, when I first fell in love with the traditional Latin mass, my friend Nick, who's in the band Hallowed, by the way, we're playing March 1st and March 2nd in California, one show in Torrance, one show in Berkeley, respectively. So March 1st, we'll be out in California. Catholic rock band, really awesome, kind of like a post-punk.
They're doing the summer festival, aren't they?
Maybe. Oh yeah, he did a Catholic Palooza, I think it's called.
In Jersey. So they're doing that in Jersey. I'm going to I think Rob might come too. We're going in Jersey in June, I think, right? Or July.
Something like that, yeah.
Oh, I can't wait. That's awesome. But Nick told me, he's like, yeah, if it was just we're just not able to do Latin mass, then I'm going to Novus Ordo. And I was like, I respected that. And I was like, it would hurt so bad to do. But I mean, we go to regular, sometimes we can't take the trip. It's almost an hour. And we go to Novus Ordos, and sometimes they get it right. Sometimes they just flame out the incense. I don't know what they're doing over there. Well,
let's put it this way. This past Sunday, so last week my daughter didn't receive, and I'm like, okay, we're all going to confession. So I get the whole family, we all go. So we get up, and the only place you go to confession on Sunday is at a Novus Ordo parish. It's before the 9 a.m. mass. So all right, so we go in, my whole family gets online for confession. It's from 8 to 9. I get there at 10 to 8. There's already a line.
Wow.
Okay. So we go, there's two lines. Right when you walk into the narthex, there's one goes to the right, one goes to the left. My family gets on the line to the left. We wait. It's like 8:40. Everyone in my family, so my wife goes, my two daughters go, I'm next. And the priest walks out and goes, I have to go get ready for mass. So now I have to go on the other line. Now there's people who just walked in behind me, and they now cut me, and they're on the new line. Yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've been here since 10 to 8. You people just walked in. You don't have the courtesy to go, all right, dude, why don't you come around? No, they just did. So now I'm waiting, and mass begins, and I'm the next one to go to confession. And the priest in there goes, mass is beginning. I said, I grabbed him. I go, get back in there. You're hearing my confession.
That is the most Anthony thing I've ever heard.
Dude, I go, not only are you hearing my confession, you're hearing my son's confession, and there's 4 people behind us. Get back in there. He's like, but mass is starting. I'm like, I do not care. You're hearing our confession. And he goes back in.
The last thing you confess is also I forced a priest to hear my confession. There's all other sins that
I was very grateful to him for hearing my confession, but it's like, dude, you can't do that to people. I got there 10 to 7. I was like one of the first people there. It was funny.
This really the homily that that we had last week or the week before, maybe it was about the vineyard where the worker that got there late got paid the same rate.
I love that. I love that.
Too. And so that's another thing about, we're hearing so much scripture. We're getting a deep dive into it, just living out the liturgical year and all the symbolisms of like the fact that we can't have the Gloria Excelsis or Excelsis until Easter is like heartbreaking. It's like you're supposed to desire that
anticipation for it.
And I love that so much. And you just, sorry, Christ is not here yet. Or that's the symbolism, is that it's coming from that darkness to light when he finally comes. And it's just it really does. It's not even like Lent that it's the kind of what else we don't get the music. We don't get an organ, right? It's all a cappella up until then. Or
we lose the Aspergus me, right?
Yeah.
Do we? Oh, we do.
Yeah, you lose the Aspergus me. You lose a couple of things. We used to do Catholic trivia.
At Ash Wednesday we lose it.
I don't remember.
So we have it now.
You'll still have it now. Yeah. So you'll like in penitential seasons, you lose the Gloria. You lose we used to do Catholic trivia. That's how the channel started.
You lose that.
Yeah, you lose the hallelujah. So
Yep.
we started off doing Catholic trivia, and I remember like learning because I had a Catholic trivia game, and it was like
Awesome.
I was learning things with the people on the show. It wasn't that fun.
Wow.
The people seem to like it. I never really liked it that much.
It was the start of the channel, but it wasn't that great.
That's so funny. It
Gave a lot of inspiration for the channel. Let's put it that way.
We don't.
We do at some point we do lose it. I don't remember when.
And
Maybe
I think Asperger's is forever, personally.
No, we lose the Asperger's.
I know it's a spectrum of Asperger's.
The Asperger's.
So the one thing about confession that I really feel that, you know, and people get this wrong too, be like, I'm not confessing my sins to a man. It's like, neither am I. He is a witness. I'm talking to Christ, but it is from the human promise that I made to my priest, or, you know, hearing my confession at the time, that stopped me from dabbling in, like, you know, like when I go on we went to we did a tour, like a censored TV tour, and when I was in other states, I would go to their masses and go to their church, and it really is like the heart of whatever city you're in. Like the Austin one, it's like, this is a place where people come that live here, and there's nowhere else that you could get an idea for other than the mall. I mean, like, where else could you get an idea for what is the beating heart of this area? So I would go to church. I went to the one in Nashville that that Latin mass, the one that Michael Knowles goes to. That was beautiful.
Really?
And you know what's interesting about that is that the church is actually it's being repaired right now because the steeple came down or something. So across the street, it's just like in a room on the second floor, and they really made it a reverent room. Like it's kind of an awkward room. There's parts of the layout that don't quite work, but they're making it work, and it feels like reverent. They made it dark in there. There's everything that you would expect. You're kneeling just on the floor, and I just embrace the pain. You're just like that's one of the weird things, is like enjoying discomfort and embracing the pain and or any sort of thing like that, and just not being afraid of that. But with the confession, going back to the confession thing, I would dabble and partake in, I would drink too much, and I don't drink throughout my entire no, I don't drink ever. But when we're like, I'm away from home and I can't be a father, I'm literally out of town, I will drink, and I'll probably drink too much. And then if there's a substance there, I would do it. And it's only from promising to the priest, a human being, a man, that I will stop doing this, that actually got me to stop, because God knows he's all knowing and all forgiving. And I know that he would understand that I'm having issues with that. And it's almost like he has such a great mercy and forgiveness that it can be like, well, I'm not embarrassed of this, but I am embarrassed to tell another man that I've said the same thing. I broke this promise. I'm coming back with the same crap. And so it's like, that's another, a graceful thing.
Because a Protestant would say, well, I can confess my sins to Jesus, but you don't know how wicked your sins are until you have to tell another person verbally out loud. Like there's something really hard about telling those more devious sins to another person. And because you hear it all the time. Well, why can't I just confess to Jesus? You can, and you should regularly, but going and actually telling somebody what you did, it's almost like you don't know what you need to confess until you go and confess it. Sometimes you do that examination of conscience, and you really have to dig into, where have I fallen short here?
Sure. I mean, all the sacraments, they have a real life, tangible, immediate feedback to them, as well as
Aaron is Protestant. We don't sin.
That's funny. That's pretty funny. Yeah, man, that's great. I mean, is she flirting with Catholicism? Obviously,
dude. Watches our show all the time. He's definitely got his feet in the water. That's for sure.
I remember being so grumpy at Catholics would be like, "How dare you? Like, I know Jesus. All right, I'm doing all I can." And it's like, and then when you finally are welcomed in, and you are like, it's a welcome home, and then the chrism oil on your head feels like they are bathing your entire body in that oil, and the smell is so affectionate.
When did you get confirmed?
A year and change ago. I forget. I'm bad with dates, but. Yeah, but I was attending church and just not receiving, just watching my wife just sitting in the pew or kneeling in the pew. Well, and it's just, I wanted that, like that desire for it was so real. You know, it was.
So even though you made your first communion because you joined RCIA, you had to hold off.
No, that's the thing. I never went through RCIA, so I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a thing.
No, you didn't need to. I mean, if you went to the only sacrament you didn't get was confirmation.
Right.
So if the priest just gave you confirmation, that's all you needed. RCIA is actually a dumpster fire, to be honest with you.
It's terrible.
No, it really is. My wife, so when I married my wife, she was Lutheran, and like I got a dispensation from the bishop, and she had to agree to raise the kids Catholic, and like I wasn't even taking my faith seriously. I just knew I needed to get married in a Catholic church. It was a weird thing.
Wow.
And her parents were furious that we didn't get married in the Lutheran church. I was like, no, we'll get married in a, and I didn't even know why I was doing it.
Wow.
But I did, and so then we had our conversion later on, and my wife joined RCIA, and this is like after I had my conversion, and I'm on fire. I'm where you are now.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in these RCIA classes, and I'm fighting with the women running it. And I'm like, that's not what it is. That's not what it is. That's not what it is. Like they would just teach the most awful things. And I remember
Timothy 2:12. You're like, Timothy 2:12.
Yeah, but I wasn't even that based yet, dude. Now I would say that, but back then I would have never said I will suffer not a woman to teach.
Or to drive.
This is I can tell you exactly when she was in RCIA is right when Benedict made the changes to it. Used to be when you go to mass, it'd be like the Lord be with you and also with you, and he changed it to and with your spirit. So it must have been right around then because the women teaching the class were like, he shouldn't have changed that. There was no reason to change, like arguing about the changes Benedict made. And I remember fighting with the lady about the translations and why Benedict did it. And it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well, because here's the thing too. It's like that undeserving feeling is like part of it never goes away. But I am in a rush to be like, I'm so grateful that I was confirmed after like all he asked for was the baptism certificate. And somehow I knew it was like something mercy, something. I know it's in the Bronx, and so I had to find it, and I looked through all the other different ones, and I was like, does this one ring a bell? Does that one ring a bell? And we found it, and maybe I corresponded with my parents about it. My mom, my dad was too Japanese to stick around. He was just pretending to be Puerto Rican, for the record, when he left. He was like, country, what am I supposed to do, Puerto Ricans? Oh, Reeve. Okay. And I was like, Dad, you're doing this wrong. You're paying child support. What are you doing? Oh, sorry about it. Anyway, so my grandparents and my mom helped me figure out that I think that rings a bell. So we went there. They had the documentation. They had to print it out. They had to find it, go through the files, and my baptism certificate was there. And it was like a key. It was so awesome.
What area in the Bronx was this?
Co-op City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Love Co-op.
My yard where I go to, so we have a yard in Queens and one in the Bronx. Our yard in the Bronx is the exit after Co-op City. It's Connor Street.
Oh yeah, I know Connor Street. Yeah. That's where they got the White Castle ain't far from there, right?
Oh yeah.
That's a dope.
Yeah, so literally, if you get off of Connor Street, my yard, if you just make a left right there, my yard is right next to the gas station as soon as you get off the exit there.
What? Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. Dude, I know the Bronx.
Your home yard, like your
my work yard, our yard where we keep our equipment.
That's crazy. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So like I know the Bronx. The Bronx is like my second home, man. So like you went and bought stuff on Arthur Ave recently, like you got Our Lady of Mount Carmel right on 187th Street there. I used to go, my guys would be working and I would sneak in and go to mass while my guys were working if I was doing a job over there.
That might be the one, Our Lady Mount. I thought it was maybe Our Lady of Mercy or Infinite Mercy, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Our Lady of Mount Carmel is on 187th Street up by Arthur Ave over there. So
that's not it then. Yeah. It's a different one. But the hard thing is let me bounce this off of you because I've been, it's if you get kind of a churchless Protestant who's kind of interested in the bold claims of the church and sees that, okay, a lot of this has been demystified. A lot of the uncharitable misrepresentations have been clarified. I will go to a mass. Isn't there a part and I'm not like a super rad trad. It's like, but I am afraid that they might go to, because we went to a Catholic church in Wildwood, New Jersey, because that's where we were on vacation, and it's like, dude, it was bad. I mean, not only the orientation, obviously you're gonna have that with the Novus Ordo, but like the songs, it was just a guy with a guitar. There was a female Eucharistic minister. It would just like,
You can actually turn someone off.
right. That's just scary. And so it's like, I will find one for you. And I want them. I would say this: there's nothing wrong with Novus Ordo. I think if you want to really show somebody the beauty and fullness of Mass, maybe link them to a diocesan Latin Mass so they can see what's possible. And it's transformative. It'll transport you. It's like timeless. And then from there, if you do go a Novus Ordo, be like, okay, like there might be things that are a little different, might be a little I mean,
look, if their first experience is a reverent Novus Ordo, that's different, right? But if they're going into some liberal women run the parish, it could be atrocious, right? Like,
is there a distinction that you could look up online and be like, is this one more? That's
the New York area, dude.
Yeah.
The only reverent Novus Ordo I've ever been to,
parish that we go to,
is the parish we go to.
I sat in for that. I sat in for not sat in, but we I don't know if we went there later. We had to go there for hours, and there happened to be a Novus Ordo before, something like that. But I witnessed the Novus Ordo
at Orientum.
Yeah, and it was like unlike any. It was like
I went for a holy day of obligation on my way home from work, and it was the first time I ever went and witnessed like an actual reverent Novus Ordo. I was like, "Whoa, what is this?"
Yeah. The fact that it's possible, it's like, I don't know. That's I think.
Hey, what did you think of the Byzantine liturgy? Because you went to that a couple weeks ago, right? They did that at our church.
You know what's crazy about that? The way that you receive with the spoon, well, specifically the body in the blood, the
intinction.
Right. Like I've had that before. Like, I don't know what memory this is. Maybe it was like some weird, because like different church denominations will mimic the Eucharist as a symbolic thing. So maybe that, like in my youth, I went to
Our Lady of Mount Carmel in the Bronx, you would go and the priest would dip the Eucharist in the wine and serve it and do intinction.
Okay. Yeah.
So it could have been there, but also Lutherans. So my wife was raised Lutheran. Now, before I'm taking my faith seriously, you would go, they would have a communion rail, you would kneel, and they treated it more reverently than the Catholics do with their conveyor line.
I know that I learned recently that they also believe that you can lose your salvation too, which is, it's interesting. There's all different flavors for it. And like most Catholics would say, it's like they have a part of the truth. It's just whether you have the fullness of truth or not, and you desire to worship properly and all this stuff. And the claims are bold, and they're not meant to be condescending. It's just truly keeping intact what was given to us, and that's the importance there. And appealing to people that know better than you, and not being your own God, essentially. I mean, I heard a brand new translation, or a brand new theory on scripture like last night while we're in the music group, and I was getting so furious at this dude, like a friend of mine. I was like, dude, nobody thinks that. You just added another schism. You just like making up stuff.
You just started a new church, dude.
It really got, like, nothing gets me pissed. I was pissed. I was like, I'll kick you out because you were derailing the conversation, dude. And I love this guy, but I was like, you are just speaking out of your ass, and this is like not even heretical.
It's frustrating. It is frustrating.
Yeah.
One of the first, like early on when me and Rob started this, I had a conversation with my cousin who's Protestant on the channel, and it was a very messy conversation. Like I had to edit a lot of it out. It was pre-recorded. That's like a Tony Soprano.
Thank you very much.
So I had to edit a lot out, but she was very open to hearing why Catholics do certain things. Like I explained to her the idea behind confessing to someone. There were just several things that I explained to her that she was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. Sometimes somebody is receptive to it. So a lot of the online arguments are difficult because if you get if you're up against someone who's just anti-Catholic, adamantly anti-Catholic, you're not getting anywhere.
Nope.
You're not
Nope.
changing that person's heart.
And it might even sacrifice you, like the sanctity of this knowledge and this truth. And there is such thing as like an unwilling recipient, or like a non-conversation, just a battle of this. I feel sometimes, and I stay away from it now, but that you're just using it as a sword and shield instead of like this sacred thing that is meaningful, and it starts to lessen itself. So yeah, and it's like I'm tempted to back up a little bit from some of the more like, or notice when something's bad faith and then just back up.
So there's two ways to look at that, right? Like if you may not change that person's mind, but sometimes people are looking on at it. So you have to be very careful not to just try to win the argument. It's hard to not do that online, especially on Twitter. It's hard to not just try to win the argument.
Sure.
But if you handle it right, even if that person's being belligerent, it might be somebody looking on that actually does have an open heart. So that could swing. Because I do know a couple of people who came to Catholicism through online stuff, like those online conversations. So it's so hard for me, dude. I just like the denomination arguments. That kid redeems Zoomer. It's like I don't know how he does it, because he's arguing within Protestantism, and I'm just like, I have no head for this, man. I don't know how you guys do it.
I like that there's the camaraderie though, where it's like, Christian Mario and Orthodox and Christian Luigi.
I love him, dude.
I love all these guys. It's like they take it, and then another thing too is like the brotherhood even between the Catholic and Orthodox too. I love that. And I don't like to see, aggression on each other. And Pine Sap, who was in here before too, he's great. Catholic Orca, I saw Christian Mario saying, "Good, I'm glad he's gone. He's insufferable." I was like, please don't mean that. Be nice.
No, well, he's annoying to Christian Mario. Like even like, all right, so modern Boethius, like I like him. People think he's annoying. I like him, dude. I don't know.
What is it? Morning Bowl atheist?
Modern Boethius. He's very similar to Catholic Orca. He's always talking about how amazing Pope Francis is and stuff. But he has a sense of humor. Dude, my thing is, if somebody can make light of themselves and not take themselves too seriously, like I'll get along with anybody that can laugh at themselves.
Totally. So just that, but I did have a kind of bad faith. This is always what it is when it gets me the most angry, when it's like, I'm just asking a question. It's like, no, what you did was you linked a video that said that the Vatican is, through the Exultet, is praising Lucifer because they
Seventh-day Adventists.
Yeah, who say, I don't know. Well, no. I mean, because the word Lucifer is in that the Exultet part of the Easter liturgy. Yeah. Which Aquinas says is like the jewel of one of the jewels of the liturgy, and like he highly regards it. It's from the darkness to the light. And I'm like, and who do you think brings that light? The term Lucifer means bringer of light. Yeah. That attributed to both the devil and Christ doesn't make it the devil's name. In fact, I think after that liturgy was solidified is when that colloquial term became a name for the devil or something like that. Just from
that's so funny that you're explaining this, because I never knew that. All I thought they were doing was mistranslating. Like I just assumed they were just mistranslating what it actually said, but you just taught me something.
And here's the thing: like I looked it up, and I cited nothing but non-Catholic sources: Jehovah's Witnesses, Baptists, maybe I don't know if they're Adventists or what, but secular Bible scholars, historians, the History Channel, Wikipedia. Like all of these non-Catholic things, and they all agree that that is just a poor translation. And so when you hear Lucifer, don't be like, ah. Yeah. So and it's hard because a lot of what they do is just like, look, that's wrong, like that it looks wrong, so therefore it's wrong. And it's like, and he was like, bro, don't get so aggressive. Like I was just asking a question. You were not just asking a question. Yeah. You're not trying to pick up.
That passive aggressive nonsense. Yeah. Dude, what did you make of
it? Real quick, that night,
no, go ahead.
All this Lucifer crap. I had the most like sinful dreams, and that's when I went to the church the next day or the day after that, and I was asking my friends there, like, can you sin in a dream? Because I felt like it was a lucid dream and I was making the wrong decisions. I even told my wife, I was like, there was some chick at some party and I was still married to you, and I like texted her and I was like, hey, what are you doing? And it's like, that's something I would never do, so that's why I'm comfortable with telling you that, and I have nothing to hide. But I was being attacked like spiritually through my dreams after just seeing the name Lucifer, or like the devil's this, the devil. It was pretty messed
Yeah,
up.
that's actually dude. That's funny you're saying that. I had a dream like a couple of days ago where me and my wife were just she was away at college and I had to call her and break up with her. It was the weirdest thing. Like a new girl came in and she was helping me move into an apartment. And so I wake up the next day and I'm telling her, I'm like, Nicole, I had the weirdest freaking dream. Like, and I told her, she was mad at me that I had this dream.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's great. But I quoted you when I told her, and I was like, you know what I heard the other day that it's totally true is like, I only have eyes for my wife.
Yeah.
Like I'll scroll on Twitter and I'll see like just some e-thought and like, because things that you don't follow will pop up, and I'm just like, oh, like I'll literally like be like, no thanks, like immediately.
Dude, custody of the eyes is such an
eyes,
important discipline to cultivate in your life, man. Dude, we walk around the streets of New York, right? Like in the summertime, I'm a construction worker. Do you know how many scantily clad women are walking around New York? Like, I'm just so disciplined about not looking. I tell my crew, I'm like, dude, do you guys realize you whistling at a 6 makes that 6 think she's a 10, and then she's going on and telling her friends, I'm a 10, I'm a 10. She's not a 10. Right. Stop looking at her. Don't give her the satisfaction. You're not helping her and you're not helping yourself. Just stop this stuff.
This is before my conversion, whatever you want to call it. I was just, regular, just believing in Christ guy. And going to New York City to go to Compound Media, I would find myself like sometimes almost like in risk of getting hit by a car or a bike, just like staring until that chick went away, like in the summertime in the city. And I just like, it wasn't even like I need to hold myself to a religious higher standard. It's just like a matter of self-dignity. It's like that loser, sorry, if she has a job, fine, but I doubt it, and it's like, I don't know what she does, but I know that I'm fulfilling like a dream of mine, which is to work with people that I admire and like, doing what I love and having an opportunity, like a sort of one-of-one position that God opened this door that I could fill. And through that, now I'm glad that I have an audience that I do, because this will be what I'm talking about for a long time. This isn't going to go away, and there's nothing else better you could do with an audience, I think. And so it's almost like the Roman Empire was a kind of vessel for the good news. When it came, it was that perfect moment in time. It's like, the people of, I don't know, maybe like me on the show, whatever, like that. And thank you. And thank you but now that we're here, there's something more important than me going, frankly, folks.
No, but you do drop little Catholic gems on Gavin's show all the time.
I do. I try to. I do.
You always drop little Catholic gems in there. I always hear you pushing a little something here and there, like the show with I even, like, Gavin came on, he said you were talking to the cops about trying to convince them Catholicism was true and stuff. So.
Right. Yeah. It's you can't stop it. You just can't stop it. It's like you want to spread the truth. You want people to partake in this thing. It's glorious and great. In the most confusing of times we've probably ever been, where the most sin and distraction is just like building an empire around you. And like, what do you have besides being clandestine or moving to the woods? Well, you could have spiritual armor, and then you don't have to be afraid of all these things that are, terrible. Yeah. But so basically, before I was really committed to any church at all, I remember being like, I'm not going to look at these women anymore. I have an important purpose of being here, and I'm not going to give any more attention to that. And I stopped gawking. And this, and that's partially due to Gavin too, because he was like, reintroducing shame into masturbation, which is like, there'll be people, I commented on this porn star who OD'd, and I was like, she's been a slave to this sinful life, and spiritually she's been dead for a while. So if she does recover from this OD, which I hope she does, there is salvation and forgiveness ready for her, and hopefully she could turn this around. And that's the good news. The bad news is that she OD'd. The good news is that she can turn all this around. But this is when you live a sinful life like that, you are now in proximity to all sorts of other sins. And it's not a surprise that, like, nobody's shocked when they see a porn star overdosing. They're like, yeah, that's probably what goes along with the lifestyle. And it's sad. You can't just write people off and be like, well, they've made their bed, they could lie in it. And I was exercising more love and compassion than the person in my comments who was like, oh, dude, that's not very Christian-like to judge or whatever. And I'm like, I'm so tired of hearing that. And by the way, you're a coomer. Like you, and then like the other guy's like, hey, can we get a post-mortem rack check or whatever? Like, just the filth of.
Dude, do you know? So when Sinead O'Connor died, I said, I pray that she made peace with God before she passed. Like I was praying for her soul. I said, I pray that Sinead made peace with God before she passed.
Yeah.
The comments, you are so judgmental, blah, blah, blah. Like going through, like people, it's like, I just prayed for her soul. You people that dim-witted? Do you not?
Yeah.
This is like, people really don't get that everyone should make peace with God in their soul before they pass.
Right. I'm just, and that's why Twitter's a great place too, because I follow so many Catholic accounts and they follow me. And when you see something like that, it would usually be a one-on-one where you're like, whatever I say is like, that's stupid. Your exegesis is very stupid and you don't know how to read and you did not interpret this correctly. And then it's like, well, people will jump in there and be like, dude, if you read what he said, they'll clarify it for you too, because you don't have to fight every battle alone with this. And it's like, we do look out for each other. And even, with Catholics coming to the aid of Orthodox when people are like too crappy towards them. They're like,
well, we could also unite with the Orthodox on our love for Our Lady. And dude, I've found the Orthodox are very staunch creationists too.
Oh, okay.
Like most of them are pretty staunch creationists. They don't like evolution and stuff. So most of them that I know so far, at least. I mean, the whole idea of playing around with evolution seems to be a very Catholic Answers way of approaching the topic.
Interesting.
So, and like I said with Eric Ibarra, like Catholic Answers is a very specific purpose. They do a lot of good work. I just disagree with this one. Like, it's not like there's, because they'll always say to you, well, the church allows you to believe in evolution, but they don't present it as one option and then present creation as the other. They present it as if Catholics should and do believe in evolution. And it's like, dude, this is not the way it's supposed to go.
Thank you for that, Trisha, by the way. I didn't know that my conversion was in their intention. That's awesome. I pray for, I pray for it too. It's just like, there's just a closeness to it that is like instant. And then, the same thing when you go to a Catholic church in a city that you've never been to, when you're, when we were touring around or something like that, it's like, it is a home away from home. It's more comfort than you have in a hotel or whatever. I'll see images of like churches like throughout the week, and I'm like, I can't wait till Sunday.
Yeah.
But you could always just, you could always visit that. You could always just pray to God, and you could always just do what you can when you're away from the church. But there's nothing like the Mass. I mean, I'm in love with all of it. I'm really, and so a lot of people might be. I've noticed this from one of my friends. I'm not speaking about all people, but my friend Kurt was like, he's kind of picking church. He's like, where do we go? And he's like, I do want to check out a Latin Mass, and I also want to check out a Latin, an Orthodox liturgy. And I'm like, oh, okay, But I would say that when I was looking around, it was really, I was at a point where I wanted to go to a church, and I didn't know which denomination. I was stuck there. A couple of years ago, when we were at the old studio around that time, and I remember looking at Orthodoxy, and what was appealing about it is the sort of no modernism can be found, the traditionalism, stuff like that's because I didn't know the Latin Mass existed. Yeah. And I remember looking, I'm like, well, I'm not Russian and I'm not Greek, so I'm not going to go to the Greek one, I'm not going to go. And I just like stopped. And I just felt like, well, I don't know why that distinction's there. And I'm sure, and now I'm at the risk of sounding like uncharitable towards Orthodox, which is not what I'm trying to go for. But basically what turned me off about it was the non-universality of it. But I hopefully that doesn't run.
Yeah, it's very oriented to a particular, like they're very nationalistic, the Orthodox churches, right? So you like the Russian Orthodox and the Greek Orthodox, they're very nationalistic. They're in that aspect, from what I know. I've never been to an Eastern liturgy. There's one near me. It's like there's a Byzantine Catholic liturgy near me that I want to go check out. But I'm Italian. Like I'm Latin. Like I'm not. Yeah. What am I gonna do, dude? What did you make of? Yeah, right. Italian. What did you make of the miracles? Right. So like you come in and you like. What do you make of discovering like incorruptible saints and Eucharistic miracles and stuff? That had to be exciting.
Our Lady Guadalupe, the Shroud of Turin. I was always afraid as a kind of when I was Protestant or non-Catholic, I was afraid to look into it because I didn't want it to be false. And then there's no fear. Now I have no fear. I will look into any of that stuff, and it's just amazing. The more that you look into it, it really is like God either has a sense of humor or knows that we're going to look deeper, and he will never allow you to have all the facts, because then you cannot have room for faith. So I tell that to atheists. We're like, well, where's the proof? I was like, God would not steal away from you the faith,
The freedom.
The surrender, the freedom, so you can't get all the facts. It wouldn't be faith if you had all the facts. Sorry, but you won't.
The shroud played such a significant part in my conversion.
Yeah, I still look up stuff on the shroud. Like it's so cool.
We interviewed Barry Schwartz.
I saw that.
We interviewed Barry Schwartz just on like the new evidence, because that carbon dating is such nonsense, dude. It's right. There's a documentary that the Discovery Channel did on recreating the face of Jesus, that they present both sides of the argument. The side against the validity of the shroud is so unconvincing. It's like, if you put that shroud up before a jury, it is 100% going to pass with flying colors as being the shroud.
It's amazing. It's stunning. It really is stunning. It's crazy. And it just gets wilder and wilder. The more you look into it, it's with a telescoping effect. It just gets, I think it was the Lady Guadalupe, where the Japanese scientist looked at it and then he fainted because he saw the actually anatomically correct mirroring of an image like that would be found in the iris of
in the eyes, right? So that you see the people that she was looking at in her eyes and stuff. Dude, I was telling my son, we were talking about, forgot what we were talking about, but Our Lady came up because we were talking about how the original, like when the conquistadors come to the Americas, they come and they send missionaries here, and they're just not getting any converts. And then all of a sudden, Our Lady appears, and it's 14 million converts in 3 years. It's just an overnight thing. Yeah. She just completely transforms the continent.
Yeah, I mean, due to like the far-reaching, I mean, it's just like you could replace all of your secular content with just there's like, and the fact that it is true, and the fact that it's not like, well, I'm watching some fictional thing and that was pretty cool. It's like there's so much. I mean, it's just like everywhere you turn, wherever you want to look, there's going to be an astounding. I was reading the Missal, the Father Lassant's Missal, and just looking at the altar, what they explained about the altar was just mind blowing. It was like, there's the 5 marks representing the body of Christ and his wounds. And like there is just no.
The priest turns around 5 times during the mass to face us to also represent those wounds. You ask your Protestant friend, say, dude, can you name one pagan culture that Protestants converted?
Oh, that's pretty.
There's not a single pagan culture that was converted by Protestantism. Only the Catholic Church converted the pagans.
The division really hurts. It's like we could be experiencing a sort of Christendom again, and the world, I don't know, it's slipped into such confusion and garbage, and we have to raise our kids in this, and it's like a very pertinent time. We're in a spiritual war, and you have to be armed up correctly. And if you don't know your faith, and like Atheism is Unstoppable is a guy who is on our network, and he talked to a Christian who didn't know his faith, so he's just giving up ground, giving up ground, and it comes down to the fact that he wants to believe, and just he doesn't have the fact. They're all there for you, my friend. They're all there. You're covered. You are covered. You just got to know it. And
faith is a matter of the heart. It's not a matter of proof. There's no somebody that wants to be an atheist. There's nothing you could say to them. There's no miracle you could show them. They will not believe it until their heart is ready to hear it.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Tony from the music group last night, he was like, things aren't great right now, and it is like, and I just heard this not too long ago too, but it's through your weakness that God can work, and you are closest to God, and God wants you to need him and wants you to be weak because he will be there for you. And he's experiencing that. It's like, it's almost like there's no atheist in a foxhole type of thing, but for just mundanity letting you down. And it's beautiful. And I was like, I hope all this like theological talk doesn't turn you off. He's like, it kind of does. I was like, all right, don't worry about that. I mean, what you have is a very pure, you need this raw faith first, or not first, but it could coincide with your learning. But I do want to kind of pounce and be like, but dude, I mean, you gotta.
Yeah, he's not ready for it yet. You gotta tread shallow waters with some people.
Right.
All right, dude, we're at the 2 hour mark. Our local stream
Locals
just got
cut
cut off,
off.
right?
Yeah.
And I have work in the. I was gonna do a locals tonight. We were gonna cut it in an hour and then put an hour of this up next week. Cause all right, so I'm off next week.
Mhm.
I'm going snowboarding with the
Hey,
fam.
that's awesome.
Yeah, taking the kids snowboarding. So we won't be on next week. We'll see if we can pop some older locals episodes up for everybody. Ryan, dude, you always could come on here, man. If like you ever have like a Tuesday or Thursday night, you want to just come and hang, like you're more than welcome.
That'd be great.
We will. I won't see you at Mass this week because I'll be away. But the following week, I'll see you at Mass again. We'll talk and we'll do Catholic Palooza this summer together too, man.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Yeah, and
That'll be
anybody
fun.
interested in that, like hollowedmusic.com, I think it is. And the dates yet again are March 1st and March 2nd, respectively. Torrance, California at the end is the name of the place. And then I forgot the name of the venue, but it's in Berkeley, California. But you could look up the info on his Instagram, Hollowed Beats, also.
Yeah, I follow him on Instagram. He's friends with my friend Enoch too. So yeah, the Catholic Palooza is only like I think 40 minutes out of the city.
Yep.
So like we could fly right over there together. That'll be a good time. So all right, guys, please hit like, subscribe. You guys know the deal. We're on locals. We got other stuff over on locals if you're not subscribed over there. And Ryan, thank you, man. This was fun, dude.
It was fun. Thank you so much for having me. Big fan of the show. I'm going to be continuing to watch and telling people about the show because it's great.
Oh, dude, we have Joshua Charles coming on the first show. We're back.
Nice. You guys have amazing guests, and it just shows that, like, you know, there's not like this Catholic community of content creators. They're not like, well, I'm I'm kind of a big guy. Like they're like, yeah, I'll come chat with you. It is a true brotherhood. Anybody who is not Catholic and is interested or like dabbling with it, it's just I hope that you could join the fullness of faith, the one true Catholic and Apostolic Church. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, Josh has this. Josh is working on a new apologetic by going into the fathers and showing how at the ascension, because he's dealing with a lot of Protestant arguments where they're talking about like the end time stuff, and they're talking about when Christ is going to come back and reign in the flesh, and he's going to present a new apologetic that I'm excited to show people, because him talking to me about it and talking about like the stars and things like that, like it really made me start thinking even more about other things. And yeah, it's going to be a good show. So when we come back, it'll be February 20th, I think, right, Rob?
Yeah,
I think February. Right. Yeah, February 20th with Joshua Charles. So all right, guys, thank you so much. We will see you guys Friday. We're gonna do something Friday. Yeah, Friday. So all right, take us out, Rob. Ryan, hang out. We'll talk in the green room.
Sounds good.